Oh, hello, you beautiful people. So, y'all, we were going to go to a museum today, but Munchkin had other plans. She's like, I'll go on a walk. So we're going to go on a walk. No, she gets to play at the park if she wants. So that's the plan for today, y'all.
So you guys, this is kind of an interesting park. This is near our house. And they're slowly trying to rehab the area because as pretty as it is, we have a lot of invasives. There's a water reed and something kind of closely related to a lily pad that are really invasive and have been and they're in the water. And so they gunk up the flow of the river. And so they've been dredging a lot. And also there are some local people who capture the turtles when they're little and teach the turtles to eat the invasive water plants. And then we've also been walking past ligustrum, for instance, which is along the river bank, which is also an invasive. So there's a lot of stuff that they're working with.
Yeah, so you can train the turtles, Hogan. So there's this one dude that takes all the tiny turtles around here and takes them. They had to be write some interview written about him because he was.
Yeah, people
were like,
in
why
town
are you
were
stealing
getting
the turtles?
upset because they saw somebody running around collecting all of the baby turtles when they hatch. Because a lot of us will help them get to the water, but this gentleman was collecting them and taking them, and so people were starting to get upset. And then it turns out he and one other person, there's sort of a group of people who do this. They release them. It's just when they're little, they teach them to eat the invasive plants, to prefer to eat the invasive plants, and then they release them back here. And then I'll show you guys the ligustrum. They have been dredging, but you can see along the shoreline across the way, right along the water line.
Yeah, this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are one of the problem plants.
Y'all, the turtles are already coming. I know, Munch, you want to feed them? Look at this, Munch. We can give the turtles some food.
So, chat, if you're going to feed turtles, first of all, make sure you're allowed to do it in your area. And second of all, make sure you're feeding them turtle food.
Come here.
You can buy turtle food specifically for these guys. Because turtles will eat a lot of, especially the ones that you can feed, they will eat a lot of stuff, sort of not necessarily knowing better. Yeah, they're eating your food, Munchkin.
There's, what is it, raw hamburger is one thing that they like, right?
Yeah, you can give them raw hamburger for people who keep turtles, and they will give them that.
We're giving them, y'all, actually, it's marketed
turtle
as
pellets.
turtle
It's
pellets.
Yeah, you get it at the pet store. It's actual turtle food. They will eat all sorts of things, they're omnivores. But if you get them accustomed to eating food from people, which I have mixed feelings about, but you need to make sure you're feeding them the right thing, because then they'll just sort of eat whatever people give them. And I've seen little kids, well-meaning little kids, try to share their snacks with them. I've seen them eat Cheerios and Cheez-Its, and I can guarantee you that's not great for their diet.
And like you said, with the invasives, if you can adapt to their food preferences so readily.
And then, I don't know if you guys can see this, but we have some fishing line that I've just caught that I'm going to take with me. There are a lot of fishers around here, which is, I think they stock the lakes, and I'm glad people are enjoying nature. But I will say, this fishing line business really drives me crazy, because we have a lot of one-legged geese around, because wildlife will get their legs tangled up in the fishing line, and fishing line is strong, so their leg just grows into it and eventually it gets amputated.
Fun story, y'all. Lita once chased down a little gosling.
When I was pregnant too, Balint and the unofficial soup were with me, and they helped me. We caught it and tried to fix its leg, but it was so embedded it was going to need surgery. So we had to take it to the wildlife rescue treatment center. So we did have to separate it from its family, but it was going to lose its leg.
It may have in the end of the day, but at least it survived at the sanctuary.
Yeah.
Do we know what kind of turtles these are?
I think we have a variety. We have some painted turtles and I think some box turtles, and then we have snappers that come out every now and again.
That's true. Yeah, y'all, we do have snappers. We've actually helped a couple of baby snappers in the past. There you go. Give that to the turtles. Good job. Munchkin.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but the older turtles, what you're looking at is actually various algae and things that are growing on their shells. So you can't see their design anymore, like the actual shell pattern design. Some of them are swimming around with full-on carpets
Of algae on them?
Yeah, and that can be, so the younger ones, you'll be able to see their shells much better.
So
And
we have painted and box and then occasional snappers. Yeah, I don't know if y'all can see, but they're very much algal covered.
And that is natural as long as you don't have an invasive algae, which on occasion can happen. And there have been times where that's actually caused problems for the turtle population. But to my knowledge, that is not a problem. We have many problems at this particular park, but that is not one of them, to my knowledge.
This is from Asia, right? Yeah. So that, y'all, is one of the invasives. And actually, when we were doing for my last job, when I was having to feed a ton of the leafcutter ants, no one would buy me vegetables or leaves or anything. So I came out here every night with Lita. We'd spend an hour cutting leaves to take into the lab for the next day. And we had people actually come out to us and say how great it was that we were cutting these down because they were because they were invasive. I think are you gonna go home, right? And I'll meet y'all at home. So these, y'all, right here, these are the ligustrum. The leafcutter ants love these plants, and the way that you can tell is they're nice and soft, the leaves. Also, if you bit into them, if you were to taste the leaf, you'd be like, huh, it's not bitter. And so if anyone is interested in keeping leafcutter ants, that's a way to identify what leaves they might like, because you might be like, huh, they should like any leaf. They're a leafcutter ant, which is what I thought. But it turns out they're very, very particular on what leaves they'll actually end up eating. And one of those criteria is if it's bitter or not in terms of the leaf, and it was not, and that's what the ants are really into. So again, these were the ones that we were cutting, coming out on the daily and making sure that we can cut down. And yeah, every day about an hour's worth of cutting, because the colonies kept growing and growing. We started off with about 5,000 ants across 3 colonies total, and then we went to each colony having at least 15,000 based on the estimates that we had. So it was 45,000 ants that needed to cut leaves so they can feed their fungus garden. These kinds of leaves with the waxy coating, they wouldn't eat. They wouldn't eat any of these. So anything with a waxy coating, they wouldn't go for. I think even this is too waxy here. You can kind of tell just on the touch. Yeah, I thought, Sam, that it would have been great to do like other weeds, or like weeds in the sense of things that were like wrapping around the trees, like ivy as well, that we had taking out in our yard, but no luck on that front. They liked these too. I think these are thorny. I can show y'all deeper on in these branches. These are quite the thorny variety, and they really liked these. Also blackberry bushes. We have here, chat, these are milkweed plants. This is the seed pod for the milkweed. And what's really cool about these, if you did not know, is that these are a source of diet for butterflies. Monarch butterflies prefer toxic milkweeds as a form of medication. So if they're infected with any kind of parasite, they'll go for the toxic milkweed. It doesn't help them, but it helps their offspring. So the medication is all what's called prophylactic in the sense, or anticipatory, which is I guess the same, where it's like you're planning ahead to make sure that your offspring don't get infected with the parasite, which I think is a really neat strategy. This one, you can actually tell if we were to take a cutting of these plants, leaf cutters would go for these fresh growths. These older ones with a waxy cuticle, they'd ignore. So eventually I got a really good eye for what the animals would eat that were local to New Jersey that they normally would never eat out in the wild. And again, the wild being for them, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, other parts of Central and South America, or different species of leaf cutter are endemic too. Rose bushes, here we go, y'all. We've got a native bee here, local pollinator. A lot of rose plants, wild roses. Our leafcutter ants really enjoy those. Interestingly enough, I know I'm just giving y'all a random leafcutter ant fact, but leafcutter ants did not, for the ones that we have, they did not eat anything that was grown in a greenhouse. So if you did cuttings like from the grocery store of roses from the winter, they would not go for it, even though in the spring In summer, they'd be all about it. These were interesting. This like giant tree leaf, the ants would only prefer small cuttings of it. And again, the suspicion was sugar content. The bigger leaves had less sugar content, like per square centimeter of leaf. Makes sense. We don't know if that's the actual reason why the insects had a preference for it or not, but I like the hypothesis either way. There are workarounds for keeping the leafcutter ants if you don't have any leaves. So like here in Jersey, right, we still had issues where it would be winter and it would be cold enough to take out a lot of the creatures and a lot of the local plants. So the backup is Brussels sprouts, lettuce, grapes in very small quantities, and broccoli. They loved broccoli. They'd actually cut each of the individual florals, like the little flowers off it. Actually, we had some officials see us cutting and they said, thank you for cutting out the invasive plants. And we were like, yeah, that's 100% what we're doing. We are 100% doing a little bit of treatment and collection on these. This plant, they would love, they would take out, no problem. So Ship, if you're like, oh, I'm going to be gone for the weekend, let me give them some food, right? Why would you not give them leaves that they've been cutting all week? Leafcutter ants, Ship, are very much like people in that they get sick of certain foods. So if you give them the same kind of leaf every day in a row for a week, they'll decide they hate it and they'll stop cutting it and they'll start throwing it, in our case, in the water that was meant as a barrier to keep them out of trouble. They throw it in the water. They then build a bridge in the water and then end up, escaping. Ship, they were on the 10th or 11th floor. They made it to the elevators out of the lab space, out of a double sealed door. Actually, I guess they went through 4 doors into an elevator, which then they rode down to the main level. Yeah, not good. Not good, especially when they're meant to be contained. I got an email from security who were like, hey, I don't mean to bug you, but your ants are out and about. How did you get them back? So Sam, I ran into lab. And by ran, I mean, yeah, I drove. It was in the middle of date night, so I hopped-tit it. I was there until 4 a.m. I swept them up into a bag and carried them back upstairs. There was a line of them, actually, moving from out of the lab space to the elevator and to the women's bathroom. They were actually, Lady Cricket, cutting pieces of paper towel and carrying that back to their nest. Yeah. And yeah, I guess they were just riding the elevator like whoever was riding in there. Not all of them got out, of course. The size of one colony was 15,000 ants at that point. So there was maybe 1,000 ants that escaped. Well, so here's the thing, Lady Cricket. They cut the paper towels, and they would take them back to the nest. So they knew how to get back because they leave a pheromone trail that they follow. Upon their return to the nest, the gardener caste is essentially standing at the entrance and says yes or no if the leaves can come inside. And the gardener caste was like, these aren't leaves. You can't bring this inside. So they were dumping paper towel pieces into the water, which was meant to be the thing that kept them out, from escaping. My least favorite, most funny, but least favorite one, I put a plastic picture of a forest on the back of their tank that they were in. Number one, I thought it was pretty. Number two, I was like, oh, they'll feel like it's home. One time they escaped and they were cutting the plastic image where the leaves were on the plastic forest image and taking that back to their nest site. And no, they did not integrate it into the fungus garden. The gardener's like, what is this? And so I got in on Monday. I'm like, what on earth happened? Why has their image been chewed up? The oak leaves, y'all, here, anything like this generic, the leafcutter ants would not like. We were keeping 3 different leafcutter ant colonies, and each colony consisted of about, at the height of it, 15,000 individuals estimated. So every day I'd have to come out here and cut leaves and then take them into the lab the next day to have the leafcutters cut the leaves to feed their fungus garden. And then you ended up getting an eye for what they would end up liking and what they wouldn't like. Because there was a lot of creatures or a lot of leaves that they'd be like, I hate this forever. And then there were leaves where like, oh, I really like this, but only on occasion. And then everything in between too. They were very, very weird with their preferences. We do have another little outcropping here. We can always check and see if there's anything interesting growing. Remember, for the microscopy specimens, I like the nice stagnant water. Easier to find some kind of creatures, especially with the algae. So the Scotsman who taught me about this plant, he said he called it ligustrum, but in America apparently it's called ligustrum, and I didn't realize this. So Mr. Irish, when I was bringing it into lab, I was like, oh yeah, I got some ligustrum, and people were like, do you mean ligustrum? What is wrong with you? I'm like, oh, that's how the Scotsman said it. Leafcutter ants hate this kind of tree. I can show you a website that's US based that you can get. They have the proper licenses that we can look at. And they actually, what's really nice is they have care guides for them. And the care guides will also tell you how easy or difficult they are to keep. If you could catch one, I would go for a carpenter ant because they're super easy to keep. They're very hardy. You can honestly forget about them for a while on accident and they'll probably be fine. But if you could catch them, that's the easiest. Because then if you were to accidentally have them escape, there wouldn't be any negative to the ecosystem, right? The last thing you want to do is like fire ants in the world that come from Argentina. They're now everywhere in the US and spread worldwide except New Zealand. So that's, that would be the benefit of not buying online and just catching something local. And again, if you catch it local, you don't have to worry about permitting because you caught it. You're just bringing it inside your house. See you guys tomorrow. Bye, Chad. Bye.